our society teaches them to be so wrapped up in themselves and their own conquest that they forget we're sexual beings as well. Plus, their egos are often way too fragile to...
I have like many answers, but I think I would say like around the age of 18, which was like right around the time when I first started having sex. I had just got out of my first real relationship, had my first heartbreak, and I ran across some guy who I don't even remember how I met him or where I met him, but we was talking or whatever, and then like out of nowhere he was like, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And I was like, okay, what's that? And then he was like, have you ever thought about like getting paid for what you do? And I'm like, what does that mean? I don't do anything. Like, I was working at Kmart. And then he was like, no, like, if you out here having sex, then you need to be getting paid for it. And I was like, nah, I don't do that, or I never thought about that. And after having that conversation with him, it kind of put me in a different headspace. Like we have something worthy. Like, niggas pay for this. I think after that, I just think about sex in a different kind of light. Like, I'm more selfish with it. And I think it's more so because, like, I know we have a prize. And if you're willing to give out your prize willy-nilly, then is it even something that you truly cherish? And I think having that experience and having that conversation, especially after being dogged out for the first time by a guy, really impacted me. And I figure it's a blessing, because if you think about in the mind of a 17-year-old or 18-year-old and how she view guys now after a heartbreak, that could potentially lead down an even worse path. But having that experience right after kind of saved me and made me look at myself as worthy and put myself on a pedestal, made it harder for niggas to get to me. I think that's it.
So I feel like my comfortability in my sexual life didn't happen until I was about 30 years old. Last year. But the biggest contribution, we can edit this, right? Okay. Yeah. So the biggest contribution to my being comfortable is probably the year off that I took abstaining from sex while dating. Because before that, I was dating guys, I was seeing guys, and I was having sexual relationships with guys without the relationship. Which was something that I was doing in hopes for a relationship, and I was giving myself in a way that I shouldn't have been. And then when I started having sex after that, after, not having sex with anyone, I realized at that time that I was having sex for me, for my pleasure, for my body, and every time if it didn't work out, a piece of me wasn't left with that person, because I wasn't having sex with them hoping for more. I was having sex with them for myself. And that is when I started to realize that, hey, I'm comfortable with myself. I started having better sex by myself. And yeah, I mean, that's my answer. But yeah, so it came in my adulthood, just coming from being a girl who gave herself to these men, hoping for more from them, learning that if a guy wants to be with you, he's going to be with you, and whether you have sex with him or not makes no difference. when you choose to have sex with somebody, you're having sex for you. Don't ever do it for the other person. And that's it.
My womanhood, they ask, what point was I comfortable or confident in my sexuality? That's the question they want to ask me. Now, we may joke about this and that when it comes to sex, to men, to our past, our adventures, our heartbreaks, our bodies. But when was I comfortable or confident with me, with my sexuality? I don't know. I think back how my womanhood was celebrated at 15, but I wasn't comfortable at the least. Ironically enough, I found my first love that year, and a year later had sex for the first time. Could I even let him see my naked body back then? No. All I could see was flaws. Somehow, once my sexuality was open, I did see another part of myself. I had power some way. I was so open to try anything, anywhere. Why was I like that? My childhood, probably. I hear my dad's voice telling me men only want you for sex. What did that do to my sexuality? It made me detached. It made me more sexual than most. I only wanted to be pleased. I didn't realize that for a long time. How sexually detached I was. How I ran from intimacy or love. How I thought guys only want sex, not love, because of the way my dad brought me up. Or, you know, that thing that happens to kids but no one wants to talk about. Yeah, that happened to me. After that, I was too confident, if you ask other people. I was a little too loud and outspoken for most. I wouldn't let a man tell me anything. Sexually was just where I release. I was comfortable with sex, not love. So I'm pretty sure that means I wasn't comfortable with me. Then I fast forward to my 20s. Yeah, those were the dark years. A toxic relationship that made me look at myself as if I was not enough. I was very uncomfortable with myself after that. I didn't even look at myself or sex the same. If I'm being honest with myself and with y'all, I think it just came back. In my 30s, I was able to feel free again. I left my ex and found myself again. Enjoying sex, enjoying myself, feeling comfortable within my own skin. Do I have doubts? All the time. Do I ask myself if I'm enough? Every other day. I think that's part of womanhood though, knowing yourself and loving yourself through it. I don't know if the day will come where I'm fully comfortable within my own skin, but I'm trying to finally let love in. And that wasn't really the question, but for so long, sex was just sex to me, and now I don't want sex, I want intimacy. And I think that's a different level of comfort within myself and within my sexuality, to want more, to need more. So yeah, now is when this is happening.
This is definitely a very thought-provoking question, because I've thought about this question over and over again because, of course, you know, we created the question. But as I think about what made me comfortable and confident in my sexuality and who I am as a sexual being, I guess I think about it like I was never really hung up or bent out of shape over sex. Like, to me, I always knew that there was a certain power that came in my being as a sexual person. I always knew that I yielded a certain level of power sexually. You know, even as a young woman, even as a teenager, I was not sexually active until I was grown, but I always knew that sex held power. And I just never really got hung up or bent out of shape over it in the fashion in which, not that I was just passing it out to everybody or just giving it to everybody. I just was always comfortable sexually. I never really was hung up. I was never ashamed of, or shy when it came to sex. You know, some people are a little bit more shy. Some people are a little bit more reserved. Some people are, like a cover up. And I was just always one of those people that walking around naked never bothered me. I always was comfortable in my body. And I always had this idea of having windows open and being naked was never anything that bothered me. And I would walk past the window or whatever. It didn't bother me because my thought process was always my sexual being, my body is powerful and they can't touch me anyway, because that's something that I choose who I'm going to give that to or who I'm going to share that with. So much so that my father once told me that the way I view femininity and sexuality reminds him a lot of his mother. Not in the sense that we were very promiscuous, but in the sense that we never really got hung up on sex. Like, it was sex, it was something it's something that I enjoy. It's something I actually love. I don't think I get to have enough sex. I don't think that I get to have as much sex as I would like to have. But I love sex. It's an amazing gift that God has given to us. And I wish I got a chance to have more, but I don't. And that's the part that messes with me. My sexuality and what contributed to me being the sexual being that I am, it was never really anything that necessarily contributed to it. I feel like it was just innately who I am. Like, even, and it's so funny, I always think about this, even as a young child, nobody ever really talked to me about sex or told me what sex was. I just always knew what sex was. I can remember being as young as like 7 and knowing what sex was. You know, so for me, I just feel like it was innately being a sexual being and being confident and comfortable in my sexuality as a woman has just always been something that was innately who I am. It was like how I was born, you know, so I don't trip about it. Like, you know, a lot of people, as I'm getting older, I'm more selective of what I'm going to do or who I'm going to do sexually. I'm much more selective than I was when I was younger, because when I was younger, it just was like, okay, whatever, it's sex. I love sex. I enjoy sex. I'm going to have sex. But I don't ever get to have as much sex as I want to, unfortunately. I think that's it.
When I literally started to feel comfortable and confident in myself as a woman sexually, it was when I had to been about, I want to say about 31, 32. And I had literally just kind of went through a massive breakup with my children's father. And it took me to completely die out of who I was to become who I was meant to be. And in that moment, I had to learn that sex for me wasn't just about the act. Sex for me was about owning who I am, being who I am, confident, just being confident in every part of me, my appearance, my shape, my curves, me as a Black woman. All of that became me being sexually confident and comfortable. You know, most people look at sex as the act. It's not about the act. It's about you, your appeal, who you are, how you act when no one else is around, how you act when you are around people, what people think about you when you're not around. Although what they think doesn't matter, but the impression that I leave upon you matters to me. So that's when I became completely confident in who I am. Now, as far as sex as the act, I can speak on that. When I started to literally own who I am, sex became something more than just the act. It became something I enjoyed, something I absolutely loved. And when you completely put yourself into something, you learn and explore everything that you possibly can about that topic, so that you know, as the woman that you are, I'm just not allowing him to please himself sexually. It's about me being able to please me sexually. And it has to be a selfless act. You have to give as much as you want to get. You know what I'm saying? So that's when I knew I was comfortable, is when I literally started looking at sex other than just sex, and looking at it as, who are you? What is it that you need? What is it that you expect? Who are you? That's it. That's what sex is to me. Who am I? I am a very confident sexual woman inside and out. I know who I am and I love who I am. And that's me.
Well, I'm not sure as to what point in my life or at what age or what time that I've become very comfortable in my sexuality as a woman. I think I'm still learning myself, even as a 49-year-old woman. Maybe I've never had enough sexual partners to learn the greatest parts of sex and being very sexual with a man. Although I have thoughts, I could see myself doing all the things I would want to do to a man during sex, and how I feel like I would be comfortable with it. But at the one point in my life, I felt sexy even being in the buff and the nude. I feel more sexy with less weight on my body. And when I gain weight, I just don't want a man looking at me. I feel like it's just all over the place, and it's not in, my body parts or my body is not in the right spot for a man to see it in the nude. At the point when I was smaller, I felt real sexy. Nobody couldn't tell me anything. I just walked around in nude around my husband or whatever, and I felt really, really good. I felt really sexy. I felt very cute within myself. Although he didn't tell me, he didn't say, he didn't boost my head to make me feel like I was sexy. I just felt it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll get there again.
Yes.
I'm going to get there, and I'm going to be confident, and I'm going to learn all the moves that's in my head that I know I could do. But I don't know yet. Until I get there, I'm still going to keep trying to feel me in the bedroom.
I think I was basically in my 40s when I finally seen that I was sexy, a woman that was able to do multiple things and still look good at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I was working, I still had my children, and I was going to school to become an assistant manager, and I felt good about myself. In the early times, I really didn't, because all the thing I had to do was work. When you have children and you're one parent, it's hard. I don't care what nobody say, it's hard to be sexy. I did not feel it. But in my 40s, I did. And as I got older, I felt better, more confidence in me as a woman, a grandmother, a great-grandmother. And I can say now, when I look at my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, which is basically females, I can kind of see some of myself, just a little bit in myself, as I got in my 40s. I could tell that they are complete with their life, and I enjoy that. Really, because it seemed like they were coming to me. I would go out with my friends, and it seemed like the men were coming to me. So that made me feel sexy. Yes, it was, because I didn't go out.
Mm-hmm.
I worked, and I wore scrubs. I thought I was going to wear scrubs all my life, because I couldn't afford I couldn't afford to dress. I had to wear uniforms. So, I got clothes, I got hair done, I look good. when I went out, I was able to dress myself, to be attractive to the male. You have to follow your dreams. You know, women, younger women these days are different from my times. You know, I can't even base women today on my girls when they were growing up. I think I would have to go with the grandchildren, because that's what the world is today. The women today are growing up looking good. They're growing up thinking about their self, their appearance, their sexuality. Back in my days, they didn't do it. And back in my kids' days, they didn't too much do it either. So, you know, I like the way the girls of today are.